The tradies that are listening to this
Yep.
are really going to be drawn to your story and who you are.
And I think that there's a lot of tradies out there that probably want to explore that side of their business, but maybe a little bit scared of being able to do it.
And I've seen a certain rhythm in people and how they approach things being in the trade. They don't like to show themselves or put themselves out there, because through the power of networking and through the power of connections and relationships, that's where you go far. That's when you go far.
Hey legends, welcome to the Connect podcast,
A no BS approach to connecting people,
connecting businesses, connecting communities.
and connecting successes. Connection is why we're here.
Tradies that are listening to this
Yep.
are really going to be drawn to your story and who you are.
Yeah, because I think you have done great from the point of view of going through those ups and downs, those pivots, changes in systems, changes in processes, you being open-minded in the way you do network and do try different avenues. And I think that there's a lot of tradies out there that probably want to explore that a side of their business, but maybe a little bit scared of being able to do it, uncomfortable, or just thinking that it's a bit cringe, right?
I can give my opinion on that. Being a tradie now, we've been doing this for a while and stepping into different companies out there. I've worked for Australia's largest electrical company. I've also worked for smaller companies and medium-sized companies before I started my own business. And I've seen a certain rhythm in people and how they approach things being in the trade. But the underlying factor that I've noticed is that tradies just like to, they don't like to show themselves or put themselves out there because of the banter that goes on in construction sites. And it's not necessarily a good or bad thing, but it obviously, if you're looking at it from a business perspective and business growth perspective, I would personally say, in my perspective, that it might slow down how far you want to grow and take things, because through the power of networking and through the power of connections and relationships, that's where you go far. And that's when you go far, tapping into people's intelligence and asking them questions and not being afraid to ask for support and not being afraid to be vulnerable and that sort of thing. Because a lot of people, especially in a male-dominated industry, there's a stigma behind being open and vulnerable, especially around guys, which now I think in today's world is starting to be a bit more diffused. It's starting to break down a bit more. A lot more people are understanding the strength behind opening up and being vulnerable. But there's still definitely a lot of people out there that will hold back on that, whether it's them wanting to connect on what the concept of being a man's man is, or just them being shy and not wanting to put themselves out there, whatever it is. But with tradies, my personal opinion is we would find it a bit tough to put ourselves out there until we started to see the value, until we started to understand the value, and then until we got sold by the concept and the idea of what putting ourselves out there ends up looking like for us. So it was a bit tough for me putting myself out there at the start, whether it was on socials, taking videos of myself, me speaking to the camera and that sort of thing after 600 takes for one video that would post, or me putting myself out there and speaking in front of a crowd. It was never a confident sort of person.
Well, none of that is natural.
Yeah.
For anyone.
100%.
And we talked about it before. It's that cringe factor, right? Whenever you're trying anything for the first time, you feel cringe. Am I doing it right? Like, even recording a video, like I record a video and I'm like, oh my God, is that how nasally I sound? Is that how big my nose is? Like my forehead's so shiny. And I'm probably giving the viewers some pointers to now look at. So
they just zoomed
apologies.
in.
I know.
Let's
so apologies for that.
But it is that cringe, and no one's your own biggest critic, right? Yeah. And no one's going to see you the same way as you see yourself. So when you were saying before, the first time you got the impression of me standing in the room being confident in this and that, man, I was the furthest thing from confident the first time I stepped into that room. I just thought, God, I'm standing in front of a whole crowd of people. I got to
I need to own it. I need to own it.
Yeah, I need to make sure I own it. I need to make sure I step up. On the inside, I was shitting myself. Yeah. So it's interesting to see that you saw a confident person. It goes to show, it's an example, perfect example of people don't see who you are the same way that you see who yourself.
Well, not many people can come into a room and do that, right? Like
Well, it comes down to them.
Yeah, in a networking environment, sometimes feels slightly cliquey, and there's groups formed already and relationships formed, and then you present into the room, you're new, you want to get yourself out there, your intention is to sell to everyone because you think that's what needs to happen quickly.
Yeah.
So, but then you're like, how do I interject myself into this conversation?
Yeah.
And for some, it's really natural. You can walk in and go, hey, my name's such and such, and really chime in. Others would shy away from that. But
Well, what was your first experience of networking? Like, how did you? Was it before I approached you and asked you to do it, or were you doing it before that?
no, so I was originally a tradie like Pat, so I can relate to the things that Pat talks about. I was a tradie with an ambition to sort of get off the tools and run my business, but I could never get it right just because I didn't have the right structure and processes in place. So it forced me to continually stay on the tools and work until I pivoted into other businesses. But in talking networking, we I think for 2 years, it might have been longer, Ron, you were pestering me in different avenues, emails, Facebook, messages, just calls.
I thought I'd try one to start with the email, and then a phone call, then text message, and start the routine every year.
Different pictures, sending me photos.
How good is this, Ben? You'd have so much fun here.
What sort of photos?
And
That's for after hours.
Was this before you guys connected?
yeah. So
like before
off
you
the
met
backstory of
through
what Ron said before, we obviously went to school together. Not necessarily friends in the school, different
I was in
groups.
the grade above. We had our, just like every school in the southwest, the grade above always had dramas with the grade below, vice versa.
Yeah, you're fighting for territory. And girls,
someone's girlfriend, and you don't even know why you're in that fight.
And to be honest, if we all look back on the things that we were fighting about, we probably don't remember half of the things. They were minuscule, but we were young and silly. But but look, then so Ron and I never actually really got along back then, But I was watching from the outside. I could see this guy coming through, and he was in the finance industry, and he was breaking out, from being in that corporate world into. And I was watching. Because you're in business, you gravitate towards other people.
And you got people on social media, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're from the area, you always have people on social media, so you're viewing,
secretly, even if we didn't get along at that point, you're sort of like gunning for him a little bit because he's from the area. You want
to support.
He's breaking out.
Yeah. As you get older, right? You're from your young 20s to your mid 20s to your late 20s, and along that way, your friend circle or the people you talk to get smaller. And then when you're coming into a new area like Oran Park, MacArthur, you don't know a lot of people around here, so you tend to stick to people that you know from back home. From that comfort level as well,
so
right?
I'm secretly cheering for him in the background, watching what is his progression and growth, and I'm gunning for his wins. And then he was obviously reaching out and trying to connect because he's doing the right thing. He's trying to collab with different people. I had moved out to this area, so we were local, and that's who we wanted to work with was local people. So it took about 2 years for Ron to sort of convince me to come, and I actually chose not to go to the one he was asking for. I went to another one originally just to see.
I did not know this, by the way, so I'm a bit offended.
Brings back a bit of trauma.
Because I thought, what, if I'm going to make a decision on something...
It's on my terms.
No, I'm going to... I was new to the environment, and I didn't want to walk in there blind. I wanted to be prepared. Like anything I do in life, I overthink it a little bit. So I thought that the best thing to do was actually go and see another group before I turned up at his. Because if I loved it, I was actually going to sign up and be a part of it. So I went to another separate group. That group was a visitor day for that particular networking, and there was 50 businesses in the room. And it was really hard. To connect with people in the room, I found it slightly intimidating. And I'm a confident guy, right? So I felt I was in the background a little bit, and it just the structure of it, I thought, I left it. Anyway, Ron again said, hey, come in a couple of weeks to this particular event. So I did. I said, I'll give it one more shot. And I walked into the room, and at that point, this particular group was filled with a couple of key guys that were really great guys. And they introduced me, and they made me feel super welcome from the beginning.
How important is that, eh?
Oh, it was a red carpet entry for me. I felt something that day. I really did feel something.
I think it was also probably the generational difference in maybe the
so
groups that you
the initial
visited.
one I went to was an older crowd. You know, some of them had been established in their business for 15, 20 years.
Yeah, wow.
You know, and a couple of my things that I was working on were really early in the piece, I guess. So, you know, when walking into that room, I saw other hustlers.
Yep.
I saw guys that were like-minded. I thought, this is the room
Yeah.
you want to sit in, you know. And I've never been one to say that I've got all the answers. So I could see in the room that I was going to learn a lot from the guys around me. And Ron was there, and there was a few other key players that we're still friends with to this day, right?
Look, it's how it all started off the back of being in a networking group together,
And
which
connecting.
is sorry,
Connecting.
100%.
We made this a free platform because we want to educate and add value to your business world. All we ask for as a payment is to hit the subscribe button and share it with people that you know would benefit from this conversation. If you want to elevate your connections, we'll see you at the next Connect MacArthur event.